Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mush Ali, Director at 110 Associates. Welcome to Series 1 of 1 to 10 with 110. This will be a series of podcasts aimed at giving invaluable insights from the CFO, COO community within the fund space. It's something that we're really passionate about. I really do hope this will help the upcoming talent, people in the seat today, or maybe helping a hiring manager thinking about hiring a COO, CFO, and really just try to understand the challenges, the mistakes, the lessons learned from our panel of experts. I wanted to introduce you to our first guest, Richard Haas. Richard Haas has been the COO for the last 20 years in the industry, where he's looked after the asset management arm of a bank. He's been the COO of Europe for TPG Axon, and he joined CapeView Capital as a CEO and is now the CEO. We had a really interesting conversation where Richard was really kind with his time. And as a result, we've split this episode into two parts. The first part is Richard really giving us some great snippets where he's talked about the three challenges that he's faced as a COO and up-and-coming COO will face. He's talked about some of the biggest mistakes he's made. We got some really, really good insights from him. And that really is what forms part one of episode 1. And part 2 is actually a 40-minute conversation where you really get to understand the full insight to Richard, how he's become a COO, how his journey went to CEO. So it's a really interesting story that he's gone through, which I thought was fascinating. Without further ado, let's start with episode 1, part 1. I've got a few questions for you, like sort of, what do you think are the 3 key skills you need to be a good CFO, COO?
Well, I think that the coaches, that have become very fashionable in the last few years talk about super strengths.
Yeah.
And I think that to be a COO, you need to be a master of a number of areas of the business.
Yeah.
But you do need some super strengths within that.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a complete expert on all the areas, but you do need to be an expert or really deep knowledge of at least 1 or 2 experts.
Yeah.
So if you take my profile, for example, I'm obviously a chartered accountant, and I have I've been involved with the compliance side of the business ever since I joined James Capel, and we figured out which SRO each bit of James Capel should go to. So,
but Richard, I'm gonna stop you, right? I'm gonna stop you. I want 3 crisp skills. 3 crisp skills that you think are invaluable. I know I'm putting you on the spot now, but
you're putting me on the spot. But I think you need to be organized.
Yeah.
You need to listen.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to make decisions, or rather, you need good judgment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No. Good judgment, organize, and listen. Right.
Yeah.
They're priceless, by the way. Right. And the reason I pushed you on it, because those are the things that a lot of people sort of are. And it was interesting. The reason I stopped you was, I know you could be an expert in lots of things, but the key thing is actually, I think the hardest thing is being able to manage upwards, right? And to do that, you need to be organized. You have to be able to listen. And it's interesting, like the judgment point you make for me is, it is that judgment around, well, how am I going to deal with a particular individual? And I hear your story, and what I think is interesting for me anyway, and helps me in my journey as I continue to look for talent, is for me, that judgment that you talk about comes from the experience you've had in different environments, British bank, US bank, that whole journey, I think really helps your judgment of how you deal with different people. Because to be a good COO, that's invaluable. So that's fine. Let's move. Thank you for that.
Fine.
Biggest mistake, Richard. Biggest mistake, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest mistake. Oh, gosh. I'll tell you what my biggest mistake was, but this is going to sound very trite. You remember right at the beginning of this conversation, I mentioned a lady who gave me this really good advice. This was in the early days of Lotus 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And I'd spent all afternoon on some spreadsheet with Lotus 1, 2, 3. And then I'd lost the lot. And she called me a blithering idiot. Now, it's a trite example, but it's an important example because it shows you that just to think about what you do as you do it, you know, and save as you go along, check your work, make sure it's accurate, etc. And by her, I mean, she was a little bit like, a mother, so to speak, or a maiden aunt, you know, telling you off. You know, the sense was, and not that she was she was married to another partner at James Capel at the time, but you know, it was very much. She very much told me off like a naughty schoolboy, but it made me really think about my work and how I did it. But biggest mistake, oh gosh, I can't remember. I mean, there've been lots of trip ups, you know,
that's fine.
You know, over the years. And, you know, you mentioned managing upwards, you know, perhaps, you know, bite your tongue occasionally. Don't say what you think all the time. You know, managing the politics in some of these larger organizations can be a real headache. And, you know, I remember once being taken out to lunch by somebody and, you know, him wanting, this was ABN AMRO days, and wanting me to be effectively a spy in the cab. And I basically said, I'm not a spy in the cab. You know, perhaps that wasn't politically the smartest thing to say to this very senior guy who'd come over from Holland. But, you know, if you're seeking promotion, you know, play the game. But, you know, I don't think that's a mistake in a way. Be true unto yourself. You know, don't try and be somebody you're not. Okay.
Get a bit of advice, right? Don't try and be someone you're not, right? I think it's very good advice. But okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about hiring now.
Go on.
What three things when you're looking to make a hire, what's your secret sauce? What do you look for when you're making a hire?
Okay.
Three things, which I want three, right? I want to get that from you.
Right. Okay. First thing is, you know, are they right for the role? You know, can they do the job?
Yeah.
Do they have those super strengths for that particular role?
Yeah.
First thing.
Yeah. Super skills, super strengths. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have it.
Second thing is, how are they going to fit into the organization? Are they going to work? You know, is it going to work for them in our organization?
Yeah.
And third thing is, and I think this is probably the most important, you know, is this somebody I want to see every day of the week, you know, assuming we're in normal times, you know, 5 days a week. Is this someone I can work with and relate to?
Yeah. For me there, it's the key skill and fit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, you asked for three.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. No, that's helpful because look, you know, the reason I asked that is look, people are hiring. The people are in COO seats now and in positions where they need to make decisions about hires, and that, for me, that's you know, when I've got candidates interviewing for me, they've you know, it's 50% is fit. I mean, it really is.
There's got to be a fit. There's got to be rapport. If there's no rapport, no fit, it's just not going to work.
Okay, I'm going to few final bits, and then we will wrap up, Richard. Because you've been very generous with your time, right? I want to talk about just briefly on the future, right? I guess if you think, what do you think are the key skills that a future COO really needs to have?
I'm going to come back to the question I tried to, or what I was saying a little earlier. You need to really understand the business inside out.
Yeah.
And therefore you need to know, as a COO, you need to know all areas of the you need to understand what the fund managers do, obviously, or the portfolio managers and analysts, but you need to understand everything that goes on beyond portfolio management and what the analysts do. So whether it's in no particular order, operations, IT, marketing, finance, you know, audit, the compliance side,
know the non-investment part of the business. Yeah. Know the non-investment part of the business inside out, right?
Know the non-investment side of the business inside out, but you don't need to know it. You know, coming back to my point about super strengths, make sure you know some of it in minute detail, but then hire good people around you to cover the rest, or know your gaps.
Yeah. No, for me, it's know your gap. For me, the key thing is know what your weaknesses are. And hire better people around you.
It's not so much weaknesses, because you may, I mean, you may understand how to run, IT, for example, may know how to run an IT department, but you may not necessarily understand the ins and outs of every single widget within it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for you, it's always about knowing and understanding that business. Okay.
Yes. And also knowing how to deal with your gaps.
Yeah. Knowing how to deal with your gaps. Yeah. Okay. Final question this will be now, right? Cool. What 3 pieces of advice would you give to a younger you, Richard?
For a younger me, what would I say to them?
That's a hard question, isn't it, Richard?
It is a hard question, but firstly, I would say think carefully about your career. What is it you want to achieve out of it? What do you enjoy? Because unless you're passionate about what you do, you're not going to be successful, however hard you try, because there'll always be a draw to what you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
Secondly, something I said earlier, I guess, was listen to others, take advice.
Yeah.
You don't know it all. And take that advice and consider it and think about it and, act upon it. And then thirdly, and most importantly, I think that in order to, have a long-term career, make sure you plan, don't jump from A to B to C just because you think this probably is not good for you, but just because there's another couple of £1,000 on the table somewhere else. No, think carefully before you move, because you're moving for a reason, and it's a stepping stone that goes down on your CV.
Yeah, brilliant. Honestly, Richard, that final 3 bits, I think hopefully people have listened to, and we'll try and eke them out as well and get that out. But that's what I want to get out of this podcast. I genuinely, I've been in the industry I think 15 years myself, and the biggest issue that I see right now is a lot of talent coming through are not fortunate to have spent the time that you spent in the big banks, in big environments, to really get a proper sense of how you build your career. And people are getting promoted quicker into roles ahead of probably their years of experience, just because that's the way the world seems to go. And I'm hoping that actually some of the things that you've said today, like, people have listened to and take on board, because I don't think there's enough information out there. And I genuinely think there's a lot for you, Richard, to give back to those guys in the future. In what form, I don't know, but no, really good, really good.
Thank you. Hopefully that's been helpful.
No, really good. Look, I'll conclude there. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Richard, for your time. Super kind of your time, and no doubt we'll be in touch soon.
Well, thank you, Mush.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. We'll wrap there. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.